Welcome to the next edition of The American Veteran, a news magazine produced by the Department of Veterans Affairs for you, your family, and caregivers. I'm Melissa Heinz of the Air National Guard.
And I'm Henry Huntley, an Army veteran. We're here at the Defense Media Activity Studios at Fort Meade to bring you the latest news and benefits from VA, as well as inspiring stories of your fellow veterans.
All of our stories in our program today can be found online at VA's blog, Vantage Point. Visit us at blogs.va.gov.
Like many veterans, Brandon brought the war home and was using alcohol to cope. With help from VA, as well as friends and family, he's now turned his life around.
There was an island in the Euphrates River. The intel was that there was enemy on this island and they were shooting mortars from this island. You know, you have your M16 slung, your magazines, you have your grenades, so you're swimming with a full combat load. That morning, my swimming partner was Corporal Jeffrey Green. We were probably maybe 15 feet from the island, and I told Corporal Green I was going to try to touch the bottom, and I couldn't touch, so we started swimming again. By the time I got from that 15 feet, I swam that 15 feet where I tried to touch, I ended up getting to the island, and I turned around and Corporal Green was gone. I always wondered, why me? Why didn't I get hurt? Why didn't I get shot? Why didn't I get killed? Why did these guys have to die? And they remind me to get up and make the most of my day.
Well, when he came home, definitely changed.
He was home, but he brought the war back with him, I think. And I didn't see the day-to-day thing, but I know later on he told us there was 4 or 5 times where he was thinking about suicide. And the hardest part is that we all loved him so much and we couldn't help him.
I had a really hard time with the transition from military to civilian life. I had a hard time sleeping. If I wasn't blacked out drunk, I would have bad dreams. And that was my way of coping with the problem, was blacking out. So I drank to try to solve my problems. The New Year's of 2007, I ended up meeting this girl named Lara.
My name is Lara, and I've been dating Brandon for going on 8 years on New Year's.
This VA appointment had come up, and I was unsure on if I was going to go or not. But, all I needed was that one person to tell me, yes, do it. And I went.
I did encourage him to get help, but there's no way that I could tell him to get help and him actually do it and it be successful. It was something that had to come from within himself. I
ended up going to the Minneapolis VA. I was diagnosed with PTSD and anxiety disorder. They have plenty of awesome doctors and all these programs. I used the Montgomery GI Bill. I went to school in Eau Claire, Wisconsin at Chippewa Valley Technical College and got 2 associate degrees, one in business management and one in marketing. I graduated school and I started a production company, and I traveled the United States and Canada recording Native American music.
As an economist, I'd say we got a good return on our investment.
A lot of the recordings that we do are live, so we travel from state to state, from province to province, going to these different powwows, and we actually set up the microphones around the drum. The singers sing their songs, and I have a pretty easy job. I just hit record. Anything that you might have going on, that's what the VA is for, and there are plenty of people there to help you.
So I think ultimately supporting each other and loving each other come what may.
I couldn't ask for anything more right now. I'm really happy where I'm at right now.
For more information on the Montgomery GI Bill, as well as the many benefits and services VA offers, visit explore.va.gov.
Michael Fitzmaurice enlisted in the U.S. Army at the height of the Vietnam War. When he spoke with us, he reflected on the Battle of Khe Sanh, for which he received the Medal of Honor.
I had a pretty normal life. I mean, I thought it was at the time, but I think we had a pretty normal childhood, run around from daylight to dusk. And I don't know, Ma never knew where we were, but we were always into something. Well, my dad was in the Army and my uncles, and I didn't want to go to college, so me and 3 friends jumped in the car and came to Sioux Falls and joined up with the military. They didn't know I enlisted till I came home, and Dad wasn't very happy, but I didn't even know what Vietnam was at the time. Just thought that's what you should be doing. Give back a little bit to your country. And I mean, basic was an eye-opener, and then, I mean, they kept pounding into, you know, learn what we're teaching because you're going to need it. And it's really true. Every day, while orders to Vietnam were coming. And so they came, and I was gone. I came into the section of 17th Cav. They were cooking steaks, and they had a big trailer full of beer, and I thought, man, this is going to be the place. And that was a great unit. And then everything was connected with trenches. It was about neck deep, and then they went out to the fighting positions. And life was good. We guarded the airstrip, but then for about 3 days we were getting rockets in and blowing crap up. And the night of the 22nd I was put on guard duty, so I was out. And like I'd just come back to go to bed. And I think Phil was gonna go out, and the rockets and stuff started coming in, and looked like it was like daylight out there, so him and I were gonna truck out to the fighting position, and no more got out, and Cornella was blowed up, all the crap, and so him and I got in the hole, and then they satchel charged our bunker, which buried the other guys in there, and then it went downhill from there. They were coming right through our 3rd platoon. So it was Phil and me out there against the world. He shot some guys up before I never even seen them, or they'd have had me. And I seen somebody trucking up. I thought, God, it must be one of ours. And he come up there, and boom, he throwed in something, and all I remember is one of them blew up, and I don't know, he was inside, and for some reason I went out, and there was a whole bunch of them coming down the trenches, so I shot him up, and the next thing I know, I'm laying up on top of out of the hole there, and I blew up. And from then on, I don't really remember. They came in and pulled us out, and then I don't know. I ended up in Fitzsimmons. Can't regret any of it, though. It's just a part of your life. And I was discharged right out of Fitzsimmons in, I think it was April 7th of 72. And then that was life, I guess. You get up and go to work, and called me down to the office. We had a call from the White House. And they told me I was going to receive the Medal of Honor. And I never even knew I was put in for one. I joined the National Guard when I was discharged out of Fitzsimmons Hospital. I stayed in there for about 18 years, and then I got a job at the VA hospital and finished out to retirement. That's the beauty of the medal. You get to we go all over the country to things, and you meet so many nice people. Some of them you stay in contact with forever.
Mike continues to volunteer his time at the Sioux Falls VA Medical Center because he knows the importance of serving his fellow veterans. After the break,
I'm doing this.
The Winter Sports Clinic uses the power of sports to show veterans with disabilities that anything is possible.
We grew up together. We believed in something bigger than ourselves. The military took me to one side of the world and her to the other. And even though she was always the strong one, when we caught up years later, I found out she had fallen on some hard times. It was her call to make, but doing it together made all the difference.
When I see homeless vets on my route, I always think to myself, we both swore an oath to protect our way of life, to protect our community. With VA's hotline for homeless vets, I can get them connected with help to get them back on their feet again.
VA's round-the-clock hotline can put veterans who are homeless in touch with the resources and support they earned through their military service. You have the power to help a veteran facing homelessness. Go to va.gov/homeless to print your wallet cards. For veterans who are homeless or on the brink of homelessness, call 877-424-3838.
The Veterans Legacy Program offers a wealth of tools for educators and the public, with a focus on honoring the sacrifices of our nation's veterans. By engaging educators, students, researchers, and the general public, the Veterans Legacy Program hopes to build appreciation for what earlier generations have given to the nation by sharing stories of all Americans who served.
Getting to know a person is a very intimate experience, and their life and their death. What strikes you is the varied stories of the people, who they were before the war, what their jobs were, the sort of totality of this person who had this seminal experience, but who lived a life before and afterwards.
It's always breathtaking when you see the hills just full of white. You realize how many people are here and how much history is here and what these people did. I think any veteran just want to be remembered, hey, we're ordinary people just like all of you, and we did this because we felt the need that we had to do it.
The largest initiative within the Veterans Legacy Program is to engage with the academic communities in a contract partnership in which professors, professional scholars engage their students and teach them the skills to do the research about veterans' lives, veterans from the local national cemetery.
These kinds of things where the students are able to combine the sort of granular level of doing the biography of an individual along with the larger context to be able to tell that as a story and not just as a couple of bullet points.
And I think it gives them a inner understanding of the importance of veterans, not only in war, but also peace.
Then at a certain point, it makes the transition from the academic to the personal. And they get to know these veterans, they get to know their lives, they get to know who their children were, they get to know where they lived, what they did after whatever war they served in, and they start to see them as neighbors from a different generation, almost friends.
My veteran's Archie Hawkins.
William Otto Grupp served in the First World War.
My veteran was Sergeant Eugene Bartow Fricks.
My veteran, Fred Kalinchuk, was an Army veteran who received a Purple Heart. So I automatically drew some connections. He's a combat veteran, which so am I. So I immediately wanted to know more about him.
What's great about this kind of research on that level is that they are committed to the veteran, to the person.
It wasn't just his military service. He's part of our heritage. Even though he's not maybe family by blood, he's contributed and shaped and developed this country.
When you go to a national cemetery, you have all of these people who have one thing in common. They were veterans, even though they might be different wars. Their service to the nation didn't end with the end of the war. They continued in so many other ways. And you have to understand that, because it isn't just about the war. The war also shapes the peace.
I have had students say to me things like, I brought someone who had been forgotten in life and in death back to life.
This is a person, like a real person with a long life. He lived to be almost 100 years old. He served for 2 years, and he decided to be buried at Florida National Cemetery, meaning that this is what defined his entire life, and it's up to us to tell that story.
NCA is committed to sharing the memory of these veterans in perpetuity. This is part of our memorialization effort. We not only memorialize the veteran in the National Cemetery, but in any way that we can. And so as the public engages with media in new ways, NCA is changing to meet those expectations, to share the memory, the stories of sacrifice of these veterans in any way that we can engage with the public.
What I'm trying to convey to them is how the National Cemetery are about democracy and about being an American, regardless of your race, ethnicity, or class. You're all veterans, and the people of the United States have decided that that is a special status that is beyond all of our traditional categories. So they all lie together, or they're all memorialized together in one landscape.
When you visit any cemetery, you're looking at a headstone with a name and a date. But there's so much more in between those two dates. So we dig and we find their life story. Fred Kalinchuk. What you're seeing right now, he's buried here, but this isn't just his headstone, this is his life. Once I go back and I see those hills of white again, I realize that my one story was just a tiny little drop in that entire bucket of white fields. And I can look at any one of those headstones and kind of feel the same connection now that I feel for Fred Kalinchuk or my own brothers that I served with.
For more information and educational materials on the Local Legacy National Heritage Program, please visit cem.va.gov.
Earlier this spring, nearly 400 veterans and active duty military members joined volunteers and VA medical professionals in Snowmass, Colorado for the 31st National Disabled Veterans Winter Sports Clinic. We begin with a story about a disabled Navy veteran who learned to ski at the age of 63.
Let's do it. I'll try anything once. We got down the hill and I thought, oh, this is great. You guys are great. You're steering me wonderful. It feels like I'm doing it. And they said, well, you are doing it. I said, yeah, I'm doing it, but you're steering me, right? He says, no, this is all you. Me. That I'm doing this. At the age of 63, I'm skiing. I never ever thought I'd be able to do this in all my life. You know, when I ended up in a wheelchair, I thought that's it. My life's over. I can't do anything anymore. And I was way wrong.
To the veteran who's tentative about trying this, what do you say to them?
They haven't lived. They haven't lived until they try this, because they can do it. If I can do it, anybody could do it. You know, and all these people make it possible. I'm always smiling. I'm always smiling now. Now, every time somebody sees me, if they listen to me, I'll tell them my story, you know. I'll tell them that I'm alive now. I never thought my life was special, but it is, and you know, everybody tells me that at the VA. I thank God every day, I really do, because I know I've lived the life, and it's been a good one.
For more information about the Winter Sports Clinic, visit wintersportsclinic.org.
That's it for this edition of The American Veteran. We're honored to bring these stories to you.
You can see everything we shared with you today, as well as detailed information about veterans resources online. Please follow our social media channels and subscribe to our podcast, This Week at VA, available in your app store.
We appreciate you taking the time to watch our program. Thank you.